social media has played a very, very big role in making these, as you say, adult children soft. People are living vicariously through other people's fake lives.
Yep.
Because what's happening right now is they're looking at social media and they're, as you said, doom scrolling, seeing them at steakhouses, seeing them on vacations, seeing them practically not doing any sort of work,
Right.
but living this lavish lifestyle. And they're on their lunch break, sitting in a cubicle, sitting at an office, sitting at a desk and saying, well, why can't I do that? And they become complacent. And when they become complacent, they become irresponsible. The discipline factor falls apart. There's so many things that happen to an individual emotionally, psychologically, even physically,
Yeah.
where they become this completely different individual. And the factor of I'm the victim plays a big role at that point.
Well, that's because we celebrate victimhood. The last 10 years especially, victimhood has been celebrated because if you're different and you're not accepted, you're a victim and it should be celebrated. I want to be celebrated for my wins. I want to be celebrated for my successes. I want to be celebrated for the accomplishments that I've had that most people can't do. I want to be celebrated for not selling a single % of equity of Fit Body Bootcamp, my franchise, in 2020 when the private equity vultures were circling because obviously having a gym franchise, we lost 218 locations in the year of 2020, right? We had 600 franchise locations. We lost 218 locations, millions of dollars. And private equity was like, hey, we'd love to give you a few $1 million to keep you afloat for 40% equity. Nope, thank you, I'll pass. That's the accomplishment I want attention for. I want attention for those things, positive. But we've conditioned, and I think it's intentional, our government through social media, television, movies, news, church, schools have conditioned this new generation that negative attention is just as good as positive attention. And if you're a victim and you don't fit in and someone looks at you in a funny way because you've got purple platinum hair or you've got a bull nose ring that's attached to your earring that goes into your shirt to your nipple, and if I've never seen that before. So if I look at you in a different way, well, now I'm a racist and you're a victim. And if you can just make a video of that, put it on social media, well, then maybe we can cancel me.
Yeah, cancel culture has become big, but recently we've noticed it somewhat, and again, from our mouths to God's ears, it's beginning to die down.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But what do you think has happened in society where masculinity has become more of something that's frowned upon and femininity is more boosted? In fact, men have become more feminine.
Absolutely.
And women have become more masculine, which is what we were kind of talking about off air.
Yeah.
What do you think has been leading to that? Why do you think that's changed so much?
Well, could we agree that in 2020, when the pandemic took place, that there was a massive shift in wealth and many, many multimillionaires were created from people who were in the know, who were maybe connected, maybe they knew this pandemic was coming, because now we're seeing how there was breadcrumbs, there was hints that this was coming. We know that the economy crashed, right? And could there have been people who were ready to invest in the right companies, like pharmaceutical companies, who were going to make the vaccine? And so if 2020 was to happen and to unfold properly, where there would be a massive shift in income and in wealth that would take place, for 2020 to happen, where people can be oppressed, told to be 6 feet apart, wear a mask even when you're by yourself in your car, don't go to the beach because, well, being miles apart from someone else is still dangerous. And by the way, you should do your part and get the injection and get the injection again and get it one more time. In my company, that's called MRR, monthly recurring revenue. When you buy Truly Wellness shots from us and then you subscribe, you're paying me monthly recurring revenue for a packet of ginger and vitamin C and turmeric and vitamin D3 to help boost your immune system. But when the government is telling you that you can't hold your job unless you keep getting revaccinated, they are forcing continuity subscription for the first time ever in history to the pharmaceutical companies. Stock prices go up. Now, do you think certain people in big government were making money from that? I would say yes, and now there's evidence and proof of that. But for all that to happen, we had to do one thing 10 years before 2020. which was to erode masculinity. Because, and I share this all the time, if all the guys in here, if we were all decided we're going to go take over Canada, right? We're going to go and take over Canada. We're going to make it part of the United States. Before we march in there, we wouldn't necessarily be afraid of the women and children to stand in opposition against us. We wouldn't be afraid of the elderly to stand in opposition. We would only be worried about the able-bodied men like us to stand in opposition, fight for their country, or before we go in, we spend the next 5-10 years beating their minds into submission by making them feel like if you're a man, if you're masculine, then you're toxic, making them dependent, lowering their testosterone levels through the food, the processed food, etc., getting them addicted to pornography, alcohol, weed. I think the legalization of stuff, I'm all for legalizing everything and taxing the shit out of it so that we can get out of this situation that we're in as a country in terms of debt. However, if we can make the men not want to stand in the gap between good and evil, then we can unfold this pandemic in a way that people are going to be able to make a lot of money. And no dude stood up for it. In fact, I've got a great friend. He's in Hollywood. And when I was on Fox News 9 times during the first 3 months of the pandemic, March, April, and May, talking about against the government, saying how small businesses are the backbone of this country. Why is Walmart open and Target open and people are able to walk in there and lick doorknobs and spend their money, but a small mom and pop gym or restaurant or whatever can't be open, right? And I had a friend, and I'd put these posts up, the clips from Fox News on my Instagram, and he would text me and he would say, Bedros, I can't like it and leave a comment, but that was a great post. That's because he's a big time actor in Hollywood. And let's just call him Bob. And I would text him back, Bob, do you love this country? Yes, I do. Do you think now would be a good time for you to speak up? Well, it would, but this my source of income is Hollywood. And so unfortunately, so many people said that, well, I'm a cop. This is my source of income. I have to go and find this mom and pop store, $5,000 every day they're open. In San Jose, a Fit Body Boot Camp, one of my gyms, 2,500 square feet in San Jose. Alex Zuniga, he's the owner. $5,000 a day fine. For what?
For staying open.
For staying open and training clients after sanitizing their hands and feet and then taping off 6 feet space where the client can work out in that box with their own pieces of equipment, not even rotating and moving around, touching other people's dumbbells. Like, what kind of fucking cop are you? Right? So when everyone says, well, this is my source of income. Well, police department made me do this. The directors, the producers, they'll never hire me again. I'll become unhireable. It's for all those reasons that we just threw our hands up as men and said, I guess you can encroach on my rights, which is sad and unfortunate. But I think the erosion of masculinity happened at least a decade before 2020 to allow 2020 to happen and this amazing wealth transfer to take place. And it breaks my heart because now men are like, well, seeing what happened, I'm sure, I'll stand in the gap in the future. No, you won't. 5 years will go by and they get amnesia and they forget and they allow the opposition to oppress them again. And that's because they get so comfortable and they get so complacent with all the life conveniences that they have that they choose to not stand out because, the nail that stands out gets the hammer, and which is unfortunate.
It's sad what's happened to society nowadays. And in fact, going back to what you were mentioning about the military as well, when was the last time that we saw the military allow government funding to allow individuals to go in there and transition from male to female?
Right.
I mean, what is that about? So basically, our tax dollars are funding this demasculinization, is that even a word, of men.
Yeah.
And I think it's being purposely done, unfortunately, through our government, through an outsource, whether it's China, whether it's any sort of communist party to
World Health Organization.
WHO, exactly.
Yep.
Anything with 3 letters we've noticed, you got to be careful with them. Yep. WHO, CDC, FBI, CIA, NSA, DEA. I mean, all these 3-letter organizations, they're are they really for America? Are they really for us?
They're not.
Absolutely not.
They never were.
Yeah.
I believe everything starts off with the best of intentions. I do believe everything starts with the best of intentions, but absolute power is absolutely corrupt. And so when we allow people in power and we call them our leaders, They're not our leaders. They're public servants. Even Donald Trump, he is a public servant. He must do what is best for our country first, not what is best for him, not as what's best for his cronies. We saw how Biden absolutely greased everybody and took money from everybody. But I share this with you because if society is to survive and move forward, if specifically the United States, which is constitutionally protected, we've got our Second Amendment that they're constantly attacking. And here in California, we see our Second Amendment attacked every which way. And the Second Amendment is the Second Amendment because it's there to protect the First Amendment, which is free speech.
Correct.
It's there for a purpose. And so if we begin to erode and modify our Constitution these ways, and no one is standing up against it because, well, things are fine, everything's great, it's just a little, we're just going to take that magazine and make it 10 rounds. And then we're going to take that magazine and just say, we want there to be some kind of a traceable component. Otherwise, you can't shoot that bullet or you can't shoot that gun. And they, before you know it, you're encroached into such a corner, you realize, I don't have the freedoms that I thought I did. I did a speaking tour in Australia this past summer. I spoke in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. And, here we are brainwashed to think that America is the greatest country on the planet. And to some degree, I do believe that. But while I was both in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, I saw zero graffiti on any of the streets, the walls, practically no homeless people. Most people were healthy. In fact, I remember seeing someone overweight, and my assistant, Ed's wife, Joan, was with me. And I was like, Joan, look, someone fat. Like here, you don't even point that out because it's just 60, 70% of the people look like walruses. There, like it caught my attention that 5 days into being in Australia, like, holy shit, I saw my first fat person. And I realized this country, by the way, and just for fun, I said, hey, by the way, what does it take for someone to, I was talking to, I forget the guy's name, but he's part of the parliament there. But I said, hey, what does it take for someone to immigrate to your country? He goes, well, how old are you? I go, I just turned 50. He goes, oh, you probably wouldn't even be able to, unless you have a very specialized skill, you wouldn't even be able to immigrate. I go, how come? He goes, well, if you were to immigrate here, what value can you add? How much can you work after the age of 50 to contribute to our economy? So why would we want you here? You would be a burden on us.